All right. We have NFL preseason today, August the 9th, and we're going to start with the New York Giants versus the Buffalo Bills, which is the early game. The game is at 1 p.m. Eastern, as you can see right here. And we're going to go over the odds real quick. Let me know if the resolution is good on these videos, because sometimes I went back looking and it looks a little bit cloudy, especially early in the video, but let me know. I'll increase the resolution if need be. But yeah, we're going to start with the Giants money line, plus 125 money line for the Giants as a dog on the road. And of course, it's just preseason, so a random amount of players are going to play. Minus 150 money line for the Buffalo Bills. Spread is like this: 3-point favorites are the Bills, 3-point underdogs are the Giants at minus 115 cost. The Bills spread is at minus 105 cost. Over under is at 36.5. Over is getting that sweet minus 105. Those hit more so than you think. And now, yesterday, if you saw the video, the last game, the New England game, it flipped. The odds flipped. So the under had the minus 105 in the video, but at game time, the over had the minus 105, and it hit. Keep in mind that minus 105 hits more so than you think. But let's see where the splits are. 29% of the betting going in favor of the Giants, 36% of the money going in favor of the Giants, 71% of the betting in favor of the Bills, 64% of the money in favor of the Bills on the money line, 28% of the betting in favor of the New York Giants. Excuse me, sorry about that. On the spread, that is 31% of the money in favor of the Giants on the spread. Buffalo is at 72% betting on the spread with 69% money. Over under 36.5. Over is getting 72% of the betting and 81% of the money. Under is getting 28% of the betting and 19% of the money. Now, more so this preseason. Of course, the preseason is still young. The massive favorites have been hitting literally 50-50 with one advantage, one game. With one game as an advantage, especially as far as the odds totals, odds numbers. So the underdogs are slightly winning, even though it's somewhat near 50-50. Bills are at minus 150 here. They are a favorite, obviously, at home, and they are getting 64% of the money early. Now, 69% of the money in favor of them on the spread of 3. When you see these low spreads in the NFL, keep in mind, and they're at minus 105, that sweet spot. But you see a lot of this flipping, especially this preseason. A lot of this is flipping with the spreads more so than the totals, even though the total happened last night in the New England game to flip. The minus 105 went over instead of under, which is what was in the video. It was under, and the over ended up winning. But with this 3-point favorite, keep that in mind. The money line favorite usually hits when it's a 3-point spread, even in the regular season. So Buffalo looks good across the board here, and this over under here. If you see these odds dip, they've been going over massively this preseason. But minus 105, you're pretty safe if you pick whatever one ends up in minus 105 close to game time. But as it currently stands, I would join the public and go with the over 36.5 in that one. All right, Texans versus Vikings. Plus 145 for the Texans, minus 170 for the Vikings. Plus 3. 3-point underdogs are the Texans at minus 105 cost. 3-point favorites are the Vikings at minus 115 cost. Over unders at 38.5. Minus 105 cost going over. Under 38.5 is getting minus 115 going under. Now, let's see where the splits are in this one. 30% of the betting in favor of on the money line in favor of the Texans. 31% of the money in favor of the Texans. 70 and 69% of the money in favor of the Vikings at home. So the massive favorites have been winning more so than the lower favorites. The massive favorites have been winning more so than the lower favorites, with the exception of Cleveland winning yesterday. As I told y'all, Cleveland was going to win that game because they're trying to build shedeur and they're trying to build hype and they want those ratings. So remember, it's all entertainment. 48% of the betting percentage spread in favor of the Texans, 56% of the money in favor of the Texans, 52% of the betting in favor of the Vikings, 44% of the money in favor of the Vikings on the money, 52% betting on the spread. Those are spreads numbers. Once again, 3-point favorites are the Vikings, and those hit more so with the 3-point spreads. They get this money line as well. They win across the board more so than not, and it is staggering. It's closer to 70-30 than you think, even in the regular season. So, with that being said, they don't have the massive numbers as the previous game does, despite there being still a 3-point spread. 56% of the money in favor of the Texans so far at that minus 105 cost. But I would still challenge that and go with Minnesota at home only for that reason. Only for that reason, Minnesota at home across the board. But that can change. That could easily flip to Houston Texans. If you see this 3-point spread flip higher or lower, go with the Texans across the board. And the over-under, getting 72% and 66%, going over. Let's see. Minus 105 cost going over. Once again, you have to challenge that. Join the public and go with that over unless you see those odds costs change. Now, Cowboys versus Rams. Minus 125 for the Cowboys on the money line as a favorite. Plus 105 for the Rams at home. 1.5 point spread in this game at minus 110 cost. Plus 1.5 are the underdog Rams at minus 110 cost. And of course, Matthew Stafford is out for a while because of a back injury. Over under 33.5, minus 105 cost going over, minus 115 going under. Let's see where these splits are in this one. This is basically somewhat a little bit more of a pick'em game, but let's see here. Okay, 49% in favor of the Cowboys on the betting. The money is getting 45% on the money for the Cowboys, 51-55 for the Rams, 51% of the betting in favor of the Cowboys, and 57% of the money in favor of the Cowboys on the spread. But it's still 1.5. So basically, whoever you pick, basically on the money line, you would more than likely pick on the spread. But that's where it gets tricky because it's 1.5. Cowboys could win, but by 1 point, and the Rams will win the spread. That could get tricky. But watch how those odds adjust. Minus 110 even. Over under. Over is getting that minus 105 sweet spot. Is the lowest one so far that we've done. 77% going on the betting going over, and 83% of the money going over. Now, with that being said, with this being such a low total, and just a moment, it has been fluctuating because it was at 32.5, then it was at 34, now it's back down to 33. Over is getting that minus 105 cost though, and when you see that minus 105 cost, you have to consider it, and they are getting most of the money. Obviously, that could change, but I think it could hold up relatively higher come game time. So once again, I would go with the over in that one, only because of where the odds are. The odds costs are. And as you can see, it's pretty much even across the board with the money line and the spread as far as the percentages. But this is still early in the day. Minus 125 for the Cowboys here. And they're not getting a massive amount of support. They're only getting 45% of the money. So people are going to expect the Cowboys to get more than likely a victory here. This 45% is probably going to go to about 60%. Cowboys have to increase this minus 125 for them to win this game. If they go over this minus 125 while they go over This 45 percentile, Cowboys across the board. But as it currently stands, you have to challenge that and go with the Rams in this one. But pay attention to who starts at the quarterback for each team. That could be a huge factor. Now, all right. Pittsburgh versus Jacksonville. Let me scroll down. All right. Plus 176 for Steelers and minus 210 on the money line for the Jaguars. Plus 4.5 points. 4.5 point underdogs are the Steelers at minus 115 cost. Minus 4.5. Minus 4.5 point favorites are the Jaguars at minus 105 cost. Over unders at 36.5. Minus 120 cost going over. Plus 100 going over. Now the way this is looking, minus 105 here. This is more than likely going to hold up with this being over 200, 210. You rarely see a spread change that's minus 105 here when you have minus 210 here. Minus over 200. When it's negative over 200 cost on the money line, you rarely see the spread cost change. It's only when they dip below that or go above the 200 range, over 300. So, with that being said, Jaguars look good across the board. We're going to go over the splits in a moment. But over is getting that minus 120 cost. We're always going to focus on the higher cost because that's where the bookies make their money, especially when the percentages are higher. Now, the total is getting 80% of the money here, 73% here. I would join the public and go with that over. And I would consider going with Jacksonville across the board in this one. Only because as I just stated, for that reason. Now the next game, Tennessee versus Tampa Bay, minus 170 money line for the Titans. Buccaneers are at plus 145 as a dog. 3.5 point favorites are the Titans at plus 100 cost. 3.5 point underdogs for the Buccaneers at minus 120 cost. Over unders at 32.5, minus 115 cost going over, minus 105 going under. Now, this minus 170 right here, minus 170 plus 145. Let's see, Titans, Buccaneers, minus 170. All right, and the sweet spot is the under at minus 105. In the so the bottom. All right, minus 120 cost for the getting 56% of the money here and 82% of the betting. So people putting big money on Tampa Bay in this one, despite the Titans being a favorite in this one. And I would join the public as it currently stands, only because this minus 120 here is giving versus this plus 100, which is only getting 18% of the betting. Only 18% of the betting at plus 100 even. If that plus 100 goes to the negative side, consider going with the Titans across the board. But if they stay above that plus amount, that positive amount, above even, consider going with Tampa Bay across the board. And under 32.5, I would challenge that and go with the over. I would go with the over 32.5 and fade the public. Okay, join the public. Excuse me, join the public in that one. They're getting 83% of the money. Now, let's go to the next one. Kansas City versus Arizona, minus 145 money line going with Kansas City. Cardinals at plus 125. 2.5 point favorites are the Chiefs at minus 120 cost. 2.5 point favorites are the Cardinals at plus 100 cost. Over under is at 39.5 at minus 105 cost. Under is getting 39.5 at minus 115 cost. All right. Let's see where the money is going in this one. Let me scroll down. That would help. All right. 82%. 78 and 82%. 78% of the betting, 82% in favor, percent of the money in favor of the Chiefs. 75% of the betting on the spread and 96% of the money in favor of the Chiefs. Alrighty, on the spread. Goodness. Minus 120 calls going with them here. At 2.5 point favorites. Now, when there are 2.5 point favorites here, let's see, 2.5 point favorites here, minus 145 here. It looked like initially, okay, what I'm looking at here is this plus 125 and plus 100 even here, which doesn't have, which really Arizona has no value, which is no value to the bettors, but a whole lot of value to the sports books, unless you parlay it, obviously. But it still doesn't have much value. And that's only getting 4%. 4% of the betting. That's not enough. Only as these splits are looking, I would go with Kansas City across the board. Only because it's so dominant. Now, when the game time comes, if you see this sort of like, it's not going to even out, but it's going to get close. When you start seeing Arizona's numbers here approach the 30th percentile or the between 30 and 40th percentile, hopefully, then you would go with Arizona. But as it currently stands, it's too much value for Kansas City at this minus 120 and minus 145 versus the plus 100 and plus 125, which isn't getting much support at all. But watch how those odds adjust. If you see this minus 145, that the Chiefs go above that minus 150, look out for the Chiefs in this one, which I think they will, depending on the percentages. If those percentages hold up when the sharps go in, the sharps are the heavy bettors, and these numbers hold up, while this goes above minus 145, Chiefs are a lock. Just remember that. Over is getting that minus 105 cost. That is a sweet spot. Over 39.5 total. I would fade the public because the over is getting 71 and 81 percentile. I would fade the public and go with that under. Only because I don't believe this minus 105 and minus 115 costs are going to hold up. That's going to change. It may even out at minus 110, or it may flip like the New England game did yesterday. But all right, let's go with the next game. It is the, let me scroll down here. All right. It is the Jets versus Packers, plus 150 for the money line for the Jets, minus 175 for the Packers. 3-point favorites are the Packers at minus 115 cost. 3-point underdogs are the Jets at minus 105 cost. Look out for that minus 105. Once again, over is getting that minus 105 cost. Over 38.5, under 38.5 is getting minus 115 cost. Now, if you look at Green Bay here, minus 175, they have definitely gone up in their respective directions since I last checked the odds, which was several hours ago. 80% of the betting going with the Packers on the money line, 75% of the money going with the Packers on the money line. 69% of the betting going with the Packers on the spread, 66% of the money going with the Packers on the spread. So, what people are betting is reflecting how much money they're making. That's a good thing because it's easy to read that way. Over is getting 71 and 71. 71% of the betting and 71% of the money. And that is over 38.5 at minus 105 cost. Now, minus 175 is very, very critical. They have definitely, those odds have changed for the Packers. Money line odds, that is. But the Jets could, despite that being, if you see the spread go up at all, 3.5, 4, whatever, go with the Jets on the spread for sure. But you could still pick Green Bay on the money line. Go with the Jets on the spread for sure if they go above that 3. If you see that drop to 2.5 or remain at 3, go with the Packers across the board. Now, over under 38.5. Let's see. All right, 71.71 going over. And over is getting that minus 105 sweet spot. Whichever one of these gets that minus 105 by game time, go with that one. Currently, it is the over, so I would join the public and go with the over. All right, Denver versus 49ers. San Francisco. Broncos versus 49ers. Minus 290 money line for the Broncos. Plus 240 money line for the 49ers. Significant dogs are the 49ers. 6.5 point favorites are the Broncos at minus 120 cost. 6.5 point underdogs are the 49ers at plus 100 cost. Even. Over under. 34.5 minus 115 cost going over. 34.5 under minus 105 cost going under. Let's see where these odds are going. Let me scroll down. Oh no, we don't need to scroll down. It's right here. All right. 58% of the betting on the money line in favor of the Broncos. 32% of the money in favor of the Broncos on the money line. 42% of the betting on the money line in favor of the 49ers. 68% of the money in favor of the 49ers on the money line. 38% of the spread in favor of the Broncos on the betting. 44% of the money on the spread in favor of the Broncos. That is a 6.5 point spread currently. 62% of the betting on the spread in favor of the 49ers. 56% of the money in favor of the 49ers on the spread. Over under. Over 80 percentile. Under is getting 20 percentile on the betting. Money percentile, 84% going over, 16% going under on the money. Now, this under 34.5 minus 105 cost, I would go with the under in this one. I would go with the under in this game. Minus 290 for the Broncos is a huge favorite in this one. But they are only getting 32% of the money. Only getting 32% of the money. 49ers are getting 68% there. Now, more than likely, San Francisco's starting quarterback more than likely will not play in this game, but he might. If it's announced that he will, he more than likely will get those odds up, which will more than likely push 49ers to somewhere around plus 200, plus 190, if that were to come out. I don't think they've announced it yet. I haven't read an article where they've announced it, whether he won't start or not. But the Broncos are a significant favorite, minus 290, by far the highest of the day. And they're getting that minus 120 cost. Broncos look good across the board in this game. Now, when the sharps go in, people look at the reason why San Francisco is getting the 68%. They're looking to cash this out. Broncos are going to challenge that. The sharps are going to challenge that with the Broncos. They're going to put a little more money on the Broncos. They more than likely won't seriously bet the Broncos unless they parlay it. Obviously, they're almost near minus 300 odds. Not much value at all to a better unless you parlay it with several other picks. But 44% of the money going with them on the spread. Minus 120 cost. Broncos could get that by a touchdown and get money here. The bookies could get money here and here. Minus 120, minus 290. And I would join the I would go with the under. I would fade the public and go with the under 34.5 in that one, only because of that minus 105 costs. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next game, in the next video, that is. You guys take care. Pray every day. Join the Patreon. Link is in the description and in the video.